Alright, so we were talking about increasing and decreasing, and if they increase together, it's a positive relationship. If they decrease together, it's a positive relationship still, because they're going in the same direction. If they're going in opposite directions, as the more I work out, the less I weigh, right? That's an inverse or a negative relationship. Not a bad one. Again, in this class, always remember, negative normally doesn't mean bad, just as positive normally doesn't mean good. So, I don't know strength unless I've run some data and done this mathematical formula where I get a correlational coefficient, and that correlational coefficient can tell me whether it's strong, moderate, weak. An association is strongest with the correlational coefficient being close to 1 or negative 1, and weakest when that number is near 0, whether it's positive or negative. A strong relationship is signified by a number with an absolute value greater than 0.6. A moderate relationship greater than 0.4 to 0.6. A weak relationship is less than 0.4. If it's 0.1, we probably would say there's no relationship. We wouldn't talk about it. In other words, we would say our findings, there were no findings. That's what we would say. With regard to direction, I've mentioned this, but let me go over it quickly. An association can be positive or negative. Another word for negative is inverse. Positive association example, Wendy gets stronger when she works out. A negative association example, Wendy loses energy when she works out. And we're just going to call her Wendy, I guess. Experiments. Imagine that I get volunteers to test my new energy drink, Jumpy Joel. It's not real. No patent. You can use it. I divide the group into two groups, a treatment group and a control group, but I don't tell them to what group they belong. I don't tell them what group they're being put in. In fact, I give the control group, as you'll see down here, fizzy water that sort of looks like Jumpy Joel. Treatment group is chosen randomly, and that randomly is really important for me to get accurate results. So, treatment group are the ones who get the treatment. Control group are the ones who get sort of the placebo, or what is their normal thing. Whatever should keep their energy at the same level in this case. What do I want to know? I want to know their energy levels after Jumpy Joel, compared to before Jumpy Joel. And when I have that information, do I get to say there's a cause or just an association? You should have said cause. So, these are some important words: independent variable and dependent variable. Independent variable is the one you manipulate. Do you get Jumpy Joel or fizzy water? The dependent variable is what I'm trying to find out, the result. How much increase in energy due to Jumpy Joel? Experimental confounds are all over the place. A confound is an issue that skews or invalidates the results, like being sick on test day makes your test score different than what it could have been. I make an F on a test because I was sick. I say to the professor, that score doesn't really show you how well I know this material. Professor says, I don't care. I don't know. The placebo effect is like presentation bias, when the expectations of the participants in a study influence their behavior. In other words, if you make it obvious what you're trying to study, definition files. If you make it obvious what you're trying to study, people will try to act that way. They'll try to make you happy. The experimenter effect is very common when an experimenter's expectations unintentionally influence the results of the study. So I might ask the people in the Jumping Joel group more often if they feel more energized, leading those individuals to report more energy. So this is the end of the intro, Research Methods, Chapter 1. Alright, so moving on to theories of personality. What is a personality? It's characteristics of thought and behavior that are distinctive, in other words, unique. You can tell people apart by them. You know, the funny guy. You know, the boring guy. Or consistent, and consistent. It must not be a thing like, man, you were funny yesterday. It needs to be something that you normally are. Two examples of personality theories are Jung and the Big Five personality theory. Jung was the first to speak about introversion and extroversion, and he only had these two groups: people who get energy from sort of being alone, and people who are energized by being around other people. The Big Five, I wrote here OCEAN because that's an acronym for what we see on the right side: openness, extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and neuroticism. You don't need to memorize each of these, but you do need to be aware of sort of what they are. Openness is openness to new ideas, to new adventures. Extroversion, you're outgoing, you're friendly, you're lively, you can put on a show. Conscientious, you're organized, you're responsible, you're careful. Agreeable, you're warm and friendly. Soft and fuzzy, neuroticism. You're moody, you're worrying and nervous. Maybe you think a whole lot. Okay. So, how do the theoretical perspectives explain personality? Remember that big T chart of all the theoretical perspectives? They explain personality theory. I mentioned a few of them. Psychodynamic theory. We have, and don't get confused by all the words, I'll walk you through it. We're focusing here. Unconscious forces shape our personality. Remember Freud, the unconscious forces, childhood experiences, coping with sexual urges. How would you guess Freud would explain how these three things would create a personality? Okay, think about that. Well, he would say that what happens in childhood, how we deal with our sexual urges, and the unconscious forces at play, which are often how we're repressing those sexual urges, that will determine the type of person we grow up to be. Freud presented this three structures of personality: the id, the superego, and the ego. Id is like the child, seeks pleasure. Superego is like the parent, seeks caution. The ego balances the other two. It's your conscious self saying, you know what, I really want to get wasted because I want to have fun. But I've got a test tomorrow, so I should stay sober. And then maybe your ego says, you know what, I'll have a couple beers and then I'll stop. So it allows you to have that fun, maybe get a little bit tipsy, but you're not going to be hungover. You're going to have time to study. It's a balance of the needs of the pleasure and caution, the id and the superego. As you see here, we talked about in class, it's like having an angel and a demon on each shoulder, sort of whispering their own needs to you. Say, you should do this or you shouldn't. Example, should I sleep with this stranger from the bar? Well, it'll feel good, says the demon. And the superego says, you don't know what diseases they have. Alright, so looking at the psychodynamic theory of personality, we have defense mechanisms such as rationalization. This guy's saying there's a fly on your head, honey. That makes perfect sense. Why he would want to take care of that fly for her, right? And here are some examples of defense mechanisms in the darker blue here. One that we're going to focus on is displacement. Let's focus on this first one. Releasing hostility on an object less dangerous than the initial cause of emotional arousal. So your boss makes you angry at work. You can't punch him, but you can go home and yell at your wife. Okay? We're not going to get into this. I'll give you a moment to look at it. If you're interested in this, you can, of course, look defense mechanisms up online. They are very interesting. Freud may have had some crazy ideas, but he was a genius. He had lots of things on target. Moving on, psychodynamic theory of personality. This is more talking about Freud's stages, psychosexual stages of personality development. Again, this is not about you memorizing. This is about you understanding. If I said the oral stage, you would think about, man, the kid's got to learn to quit sucking his thumb or to quit breastfeeding, weaning off that. And if the child has trouble during that, adult traits associated with problems at this age: optimism, that's not really a problem; gullibility, dependency, pessimism, passivity, hostility, sarcasm, aggression. I would add smoking, any oral fixations we might have. The anal stage has some of its own fun things, and I'm just going to focus on these two. Part of the body is the anus. That's your butt, in case you didn't know. Toilet training is a big issue, and we get gratification from expelling and withholding feces. And some people have trouble with this controlling and letting go at the right time. Excessive cleanliness later in life, orderliness, stinginess, messiness, rebelliousness, destructiveness. All right? And I have mentioned the Oedipus complex and the electric conflict to you, in which we might want to have sex with our opposite sex parents, but our same sex parent is in the way. So that's a problem. Perhaps we should become like them and find a mate of our own that is like them. Let's talk about Jung. That's not Jung, that's Jung. Again, he talked about introversion and extroversion, personal unconscious versus collective unconscious. I put a lot of information on some of these slides. I'm going to point you to what to focus on. So, on this slide, I want you to focus on collective unconscious and archetypes. These are keywords. Collective unconscious specifically. Collective unconscious is this idea that we all share some sort of unconscious knowledge about the world and who we should be and what roles people should play within our world. And that was all for that slide. Moving on to Adler. Personalities come from a drive for superiority, especially among the siblings. Alright, this is not sexual. Compensation is a word for people who are overcoming inferiorities, like the small man complex, Napoleon, and people who drive big trucks. Birth order is a big deal, as you see these people on the right side talking about their lives. There are common personality types associated with birth order. So take a quick look. Loading. And I'm out of time. I'll continue on the next